Joining me now is John Kirby, the spokesperson for the National Security Council. He's also a retired Rear Admiral for the U.S. Navy. Admiral Kirby, thank you for being here tonight. And let me just get right to it. I know it's a very busy day and we appreciate your time. Could you tell us a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes to determine the status of these American hostages?
We're working very, very hard, Alex, to do exactly that. The first step in doing that is, of course, hearing from the families themselves. I mean, they have been a very important source of information as they learn or try to learn the whereabouts of their loved ones. So that helps us develop the pool of those who might likely be held hostage. And right now, it's a small handful. But as Jake Sullivan, our national security advisor, said today, it's possible that some of these other unaccounted for Americans could end up in the hostage pool. Number two, the second big step is really keeping that communication open with our Israeli counterparts, because they're on the ground. They've got better intelligence than we do. They have a better sense of the hostage situation. And so we've been obviously talking hour by hour with our Israeli counterparts to try to get more information. And then three, we have made it clear to the Israelis that we're willing to provide our own hostage recovery expertise, advice and counsel from federal law enforcement, from the U.S. military, from even the U.S. intelligence community, if that would be helpful. And so we're in active communications with the Israelis also about providing some advice, counsel, expertise that we have in hostage recovery.
I know that President Biden was very clear today in his remarks from the White House that the U.S. would stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel, but he did issue a sort of, I'm not going to call it a warning. There was a sort of caveat in what he said, and I'd love to just play the sound back to get your thoughts on how we should interpret this. Can we take a listen?
We also discussed how democracies like Israel and the United States are stronger and more secure when we act according to the rule of law. Terrorists purposely target civilians, kill them. We uphold the laws of war, the law of war. It matters. There's a difference.
Who was that? Was that a cautionary note sounded to the Israelis? The idea that terrorists purposefully target civilians and kill them. We uphold the laws of war, the law of war. It matters. There's a difference. Is the Biden administration worried that the Israeli government may be violating the rules of war?
Primarily, the president was making clear the difference and the distinction between what Hamas is doing, the deliberate, indiscriminate butchery of innocent civilians in Israel. Now more than 1,000 of them literally murdered in the streets, in their homes, at a music festival, as compared to what Israel needs to do to defend its citizens. So look, I want to be very clear. We don't want to see one more single innocent civilian life taken or injured here, one more family affected by violence. That an innocent civilian, should never be subject to war. But Hamas is placing these Palestinians in Gaza in greater risk and jeopardy because they are staffing themselves in headquarters, in hospitals, and schools, and residential buildings. We know that the Israelis are conducting aggressive operations. We understand the need to do that. But the president was making a case that, like the United States, Israel is a democracy. Israel does respect the law of war. Israel does respect life and tries to operate in that way. But again, we're going to be obviously staying closely aligned, closely lashed up with Israel as they move forward, and making sure that they have what they need to defend themselves.
Yeah, I was just noting that. The president was very clear about what he thought of Hamas's terrorism and slaughter of innocents. It was just the specific mention that democracies like the U.S. and Israel are stronger and more secure when we act according to the rule of law. But let me ask you about the military assistance that the U.S. may be prepared to send over to Israel. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And are there any concerns about the fact that the Iranians may be behind these attacks ultimately, and this could sort of end up being a proxy war between the U.S. and Iran?
Nobody wants to see this war, this conflict expand or escalate. And that's the real principal reason why those naval forces were pushed into the Eastern Mediterranean. Very capable carrier strike group, of course, a lot of capability on board those ships. And it's a clear message of deterrence to any other actor, whether it's a terrorist group, organization, or another nation state that thinks that now's the opportunity to take advantage of what's going on in Israel. These are, anybody with enmity towards Israel. This is not the time to do that. And that's the message that the president was sending when he ordered the carrier strike group into the Eastern Med. We don't want to see this conflict escalate. We don't want to see it expand. And we have, by the way, significant national security interest, of course, in the region ourselves. We want to make sure that we can protect and defend those national security interests. That's what this move was all about.
Admiral John Kirby, really appreciate the time and thoughts and the clarifications tonight. Thanks so much.